Hi, I'm Vanessa from Artfolk. We're going to have fun with Textas today, so I'm sure all of you have some Textas lying around the house. We can use any texta that we like, but we must make sure that they are not permanent markers. So permanent markers are for things like documents, writing on school uniforms or plastic. We need just the normal standard art texta. So cheaper is fine. We need some water, we will need some brushes, whatever brushes you have lying around the house are fine, even if they're makeup brushes, a pencil for drawing, and of course we will need some watercolour paper. If we use standard paper, we're not going to be able to dissolve our texta, so make sure you have some watercolour paper. These are some examples of the works that I have done. This is a simple apple. So using reds to orange to yellow to get a nice rounded effect, and then placing water over the top. This one is a little bit more complex, so this is an image from a magazine that I found of limes and some flowers in a little vase, and that was going in and sketching and drawing in and then again applying washes. Most people think of water splashes on texta as an error, but I am here to tell you it is heaps and heaps of fun, and whatever you're going to get is going to look amazing. Get your things organised and we'll start soon. And I'm ready. Here I have my textas, I have my water, I have a pencil and a paintbrush and some watercolour paper. I just wanted to show you this apple again so it's not so much in the light as outside. You can see that I've used the yellows into the oranges into the reds and have used a water wash. I have left this white area of the paper just so it has a nice highlight, and then I've used a dark blue texta and a light blue and continued that wash out so it looks like it's sitting on the tabletop. I have waited till that has been fully dry, and then I have gone back in with some low light, so adding the deep red line and dark green line, and also in and around this here where the stem goes into the top of the apple. So when you've finished doing your work, you can leave it and then come back and reapply texta to make your work stand out. So the drawing that I've chosen to do this workshop is this yummy looking ice cream. So I'm going to do a quick draw and talk you through how I am going to turn this into simple shapes, and then how to texta, and then how to do a water wash. My paintbrush up the end, and let's go. So I'm looking for compound shapes. The first one is going to be this cone, so of course that is a triangle. So just going to roughly sketch in a triangle, and I have 4 flavours. So you might choose to edit and just make it 3, just depends on your paper size and what you're going to do. So each of these are roughly part of a circle. Okay, so I'm just plotting shapes. I'm not providing too much detail, and I definitely don't need extensive drawing skills. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is to start colouring in with textures. So for this base I'm going to add some pink, some orange, some mid-yellow, start off with those, and for highlights I might add a bit of bright yellow over in this area here. So I might not worry so much about these lines on the waffle cone. I'll do them later as a dry application over top of my washes. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to put some yellow. Now the brightest highlight in any type of watercolour or using water-based materials is the paper itself. So with watercolour and things like textures and markers and inks, it is very tricky to go in and to realistically or nicely add highlights. Your best highlight is the colour of the paper itself. So I'm just going to come in here, add some colour, and I just want to add a little bit of pink down the side. Okay. So this is going to be my cone. Now you can do part by part, so the cone and then one colour in the next, but I'm going to do it all together. Okay, so I'm going to take these textures out of frame. This colour here, the pink, so I'm going to choose pink, pink, and just for the fun of it, I might add just a little bit of purple to be a sneaky low light down here. So once again, I have my pink where it's light. I don't need to colour in everything because the colours will spread. Going to add, we can see some shadows up in here where the yellow layer is on top of the pink layer. So I definitely need to be adding those shadows. There's some shadows coming underneath where this ice cream is rounding. So you can see my drawing skills and my so far painting skills are pretty non-existent. I'm just trying to get an idea of highlights, lowlights and textures. Okay, so my ice cream comes in under here. This is the very dark bit in under here. And I'm not going to worry about all of those, I might just put a few in. And definitely some round sides. Okay, I can come and add details a little bit later. Right, going back into my yellow. So I'm bringing some of these colours back in. Going to be doing also a brighter, more fluoro yellow. Okay, highlights again, like starting with the highlights. You may choose to do the shadows first. Going into my mid yellow. And then lastly using my darker orange yellow. So again, this is where the ice cream is wrapping up under the layer below, some hanging over bits, up under this line, bit of a shadow in through here. Okay, I've actually forgotten to do that, so I'm just going to come back in. This one has a bit of a bulge over this side. I'm just going to come back in and add that because I want them each to be the same. And then the last colour I'm going to do is the green. I'm not going to worry about the chocolate colour on the top. So I have a light green, a mid green, and then a dark green. So again, starting with my highlights. This time the highlight is going to be along the top as well. You can see the chocolate has the highlight at the top. So just make sure I leave a bit so it's nice and washy. If your textures are running a little dry like this one, that's fine, just use them up until they're dead. They can still provide you with enough colour, enough pigment to get what you are looking for. Alright, coming in, this one is over here, getting that same sort of blob feeling. And then last but not least is my dark green coming in, because this one has been plunked on top of the yellow. Alright, once I'm happy with my drawing, so please remember you can come back in and add finer details later. You might like to add some chopped chips up in this one or some passion fruit seeds in this one. And of course the stripes and crosses on here. So I'm wetting down my brush, tapping, and then I'm going in. I'm going to start at the top. So just dissolving my water. You'll see some colours like this dark green is going to dissolve a lot quicker and a lot easier than the others. Then I'm going to go into my yellow. So this is a really quick, fun activity. You don't need to spend too much time. Might have my colours bleeding in a little bit. My mints going into my passion fruit or my vanilla. I want some more of that highlight that looks a little too stark, so I'm just going to add some water so it swells. Straight into my purple, maybe this is a raspberry ice cream. Now the one thing that I advise not to do is to put texture straight back into wet areas. It will leach your texture dry, or wet really, and you won't be able to get that back. So just going to keep going and then going into my cone. So trying to blend all of these colours. And then I'm going to need to wait for this to dry to come back in and to add my second lot of detail. So this is a good start. I need to let the water to do its job, and you'll see these colours over time dissolve into each other. So we might leave it there for a little bit while the water does its thing with the watercolour paper and the colour, and I'll come back when it's dry to show you where I would go to next. Here's my beautiful dry ice cream. So I can run my hand across it. You can see the colours have leached in together, so green has gone quite strongly into the yellow, and I have some quite nice washes. So these are going to be original every time. You can't really predict what they're going to do. So let's put some details in. I'm going to do the crisscross on this cone. I've just got my mid yellow, so coming in where there's a bit of a highlight, going to leave a bit of a space in my line, and then I'm just going to come around the other way. So again, just doing a bit of a dot. You can see this time I'm leaving the white space, but I'm starting to do some curved lines just so it looks like this is moving around. If you want to, you can do an outline. So to hold this line, I might just come down with an outline. This side's fine. Okay, so there's my ice cream cone, simple. I might choose to come into here and just make sure this is nice and dark where that purple or that raspberry piece of ice cream is casting a shadow onto that cone. That's done. Actually, I might use that colour. Actually, no, I'll use this colour. Coming in here, just holding some of this space, getting that bright, shiny yellow coming in, just to hold those edges. Coming back in under here where that shadow would be. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I might add some, let's do this, I might add some passion fruit seeds. So just very lightly come in, add some seeds. The water's still, the paper's still a little damp with water, so you'll see them leaching, but that's going to be fine. Okay, so I've got some seeds in there. Might just put one here so it doesn't look so even. There we go. And then I have my green on top. So you can see here it's washed out a little bit. I'm just going to come back in and add some of those details to show that that's actually a blob of ice cream on top. Alright, so here's my dark shadows, and I'm going to come in with my mid green just to blend some of that out. Bring back up in here. As mentioned, you can try to go back in with my water washes, but I liked the mixed media look. Now if you're wanting to do chalk chip, you can come in, add some circles to your chalk chip. If you don't like it being so obvious, I am going to show you what it looks like to dissolve. So whilst I have those sort of wet, I'm just going to come back in and dab, and you'll see them immediately starting to bleach their colour. So let's just leave that green one and you can see what happens when you do the two layers on top of each other. Okay, then I have my raspberry. I think my raspberry needs a little bit more oomph. So coming in, getting some of these bulges in under here where the yellow meets. I want there to be a bit more clarity, but these are separate. Coming in on this edge as well, separate. And just because I'm going to extend this down, and I'm going to do my ice cream ears dripping. Okay, once again going to add some water just so I can show you, adding 2 parts to my texture drawing, coming in, can dissolve these again. So Textas are very water soluble. It doesn't matter about the expense. As mentioned in the beginning, you just need to make sure that they're not permanent markers, because permanent markers won't dissolve like this does. Okay, I'm pretty happy. I might add a bit more water because you can see this beautiful purple is leaching in. Might just bring this up to the side a little bit. Yum yum. And I think the only thing that's missing in my eyes is I have a very dark top, but this is quite light and has lost some detail. So I just have a mid-brown here. Just on this bottom bit, I'm just going to hold this shape a little more strongly so it doesn't look like it's just floating off. A little bit under here, and just some of these. Just going to do some dotties just to show that they are indeed raised, particularly up under where the ice cream is sitting. And there we go. There's my ice cream. Now, if you leave your work, it dries and there's different things that you want to do, there are no errors to art making. It is just about learning. They might be classed as mistakes by you, but it's just a learning process. So I'm doing something naughty here. I'm using my texter in water. You can see it's not really working. I've probably ruined my texter now. Yep, I have, so don't do that. Don't copy me on that bit. There we go, sort of working up there. And there you go. That is my ice cream drawing. So thinking about mark making and thinking about the water dissolving aspects of textures and how much fun that is. The next thing I'm going to show you is artwork that's a little bit more complicated using a lot of white. So it's going to be this one here of a lotus, and I'm just going to concentrate on that flower. Just a very quick draw, colour in, and water application, less work than the ice cream. So I'll get myself organised and be back with you in a minute. This time round I'm going to try something a little bit more complex. So I have this lovely image of a lily, a water lily. So I'm just going to focus on the flower. I'm not going to worry about the background. I'm going to be looking once again at the simple shape. So you can see this oval. So I have my watercolour paper. I'm going to draw my oval of that front petal. I have these ones going out the side. Over to the other, this one is a little bit more open. I have this one coming underneath, almost at a triangle, and then ballooning out. I have this one over to the side which connects them. So you can see I'm not taking too much time with my drawing. It's not about perfection. There's an oval on the top. I have this one at the top here, so just drawing that in. The one that sits just in front, and then I have quite a light one here that is the back, so I'll put that in. One out the side, so going up, it has that nice little lip coming down, and it's a double side. I have this big fat one in the middle, so putting that one in. This one I'm going to cheat and just make these two into one, so it's nice and quicker. Might put this little one in though, because it just holds that spot over here. Give it a little peek, and that's it. That's my drawing. So when I start with my textures, I need to choose my colours. I have chosen 3 colours of pink, these ones here. So a light pink, a mid pink, and a dark pink. With my light pink, I'm going to use that for the petals at the front. So we can see that it's all the tips of these petals that hold the colour. So coming in, putting some of this colour down. Once again, just like the ice cream drawing, I'm not getting too fussy with where I place this colour, because it's just a depiction and expression of the picture rather than trying to get realism. Okay, we've got some of the pink in here, that beautiful big petal. and then this one in here. With the orange, I'm going to use the orange as the line holder. So much like the ice cream as well, I went around and almost did an outline so that each flavour of ice cream stood off the paper. Same thing with this salmony colour, I'm going to use this to be my line holder. So coming in, and I'm not doing a perfect line, it's quite a sketchy line, but I'm just going to use this instead of pencil to have that shape. So just a very quick draw in and around. So I don't want to be too perfect. I want there to be lots of white on this picture. You can see there's lots of white in here. Use this just to come in and to hold. Okay, easy. Going to use my dark pink, those really bright highlights. So this one up here has dark pink. Not going to be too precious. This tip up here is the bright pink, blending into that light pink. Up here, same, here, along this rim. On this point bit here, has that nice bright pink, a little bit out to the edge. This tip, so just working my way around into the tips, making sure that I can see which petal is sitting in front of the other, making sure that I have lots of white space in the base of those petals so that they can dissolve, so that the water can dissolve the colour back into the centre. So just going around and getting my colour down. Now I'm going to apply the water. So wetting my brush down, and I'm going to dissolve these colours into each other. You can see that I am pulling the pigment down to the centre, still leaving lots of white. So just working very quickly. I don't want to be stuck on each piece too long, otherwise I'll start to peel the paper or make the colours muddy. I like them doing their own thing when they are saturating. Okay, just working my way around, dragging pigment down into the centre. My dark, you'll see, dissolving. This one here is quite light into the centre. And once I've done all my tips, I'm going to go around and dissolve some of these orange holding lines, just so there's some movement. So very, very quickly we get a really beautiful, unique, expressive work. It's really easy to use Textas. There's something that we have been holding in our hands since we were very, very young. Drawing is our first artistic ability that we pick up, holding a pencil, brushing and applying paint comes a little bit later on. If the colours leach in like here, I don't mind. I'm just going to come in here and dissolve some of these orange lines to get that real washy, beautiful look. Okay, just finishing this off. Just like with the ice cream, I'm going to need to let this sit so that it dries. Not going to touch too much more, otherwise I'm going to start muddying the colours. So it will do its own thing. Here we can see it all bleeding into each other. So time for a drink, time to go and do something else, and to come back when it's nice and dry. My flower is now dry. You can see some beautiful textures, the way that the colours have bled into each other. Once again, just going to bring in very lightly a line using that salmon colour, just so each petal looks separate to the others. Okay. Once I've finished my flower, I'm going to move on to creating an abstract lily pad background. So choosing some different colours and being really loose with my brush strokes and my water application. There we go, my lily done. Okay, I'm going to use dark greens, mid greens, light greens and some blues. You can see there's a beautiful big lily pad in the background, so I'm just going to depict that very quickly. So going in here somewhere, and I'm not going to be too fussed or worried about where I apply to get this realism. So I'm just going to have fun with blocking in some of these colours. Not going to worry about entirely covering up that space either. So up here, making that flower head really stand out, the contrast between pinks and greens. Coming in, using the dark. Doesn't matter if I do some cross hatch, the water will dissolve it as it likes. Okay, in here, putting some dark in here. Now adding some light, so I've got my light green, still leaving some white space for highlights, putting some green in under here. So I haven't drawn any lily pads over here, it doesn't really matter, just sort of wanting one area that's going to look round. In here it's going to be a whole lot of shadows and highlights, working my way around. Might put some green in under here. You could go into detail, but at this stage I'm just wanting to create some abstract colour blocking. Okay, in up here. Alright, and then getting that lovely really dark green, creating the stem you can see in the picture that comes down and disappears. So we'll have that disappear into nothing, and then just adding some shadows, so there would be a shadow in under this on mine, adding some dark over to this side. I don't want that much white on that side where that flower, I want the flower head to stand out. So coming in here, adding some of that dark, and I know this colour is the one that spreads really beautifully, so wanting that spread through there. Coming in, adding some colours down here. I'm not going to cover the whole background because I do want some of that water spill and that water leach. And I'm just going to pretend that we can see the water. So the water that the lily pad and the lily flower is sitting on. So here's some blue, just so it looks like there's some water peeking through or reflecting through. Maybe a little bit up here. So you can just have a play and see what you get. And lastly, I'm just going to put some of this blue, mid blue, down in under here. I have my light blue to go. I'm just going to pick up some highlights. So I might do some highlight down here, some highlight here, and some highlight up here. And that's it. Now I'm going to have some fun with my water application and see how this is all going to blend. Okay, dabbing down my water, get my picture out of the road. It's not really relevant anymore, and just working very quickly so that those colours bleed beautifully, not too contrived or too controlled. Okay, just going to concentrate on this lily pad first. Getting my lily pad in. Love that dark green and how it dissolves in and around. There we go, coming over to this side. Just blending some around. Right, lily pad at this stage done. I'm not going to touch my stem, I want that to be strong. I'll do that at the very end. Just being careful around these petals, dragging my pigment around. So again, pulling this pigment in and around petals, pulling that blue in and around, leaving a little bit of white space just so they don't bleed together. There we go. Blobbing colour, letting that do its thing. There we go. Coming into here, letting it do its thing. So the joy of not doing much at all, just wetting down scribbles of texture can give you such a beautiful outcome. And I think that's it. Again, last time I'm going to let the water do what it wants to, and I'll come back and show you what I would do to finish this work off. So enjoyable, so much fun, and effects and the things that you couldn't even hope to plan. Just random. Okay, let it dry. And here's my finished work. You can see some beautiful leaching of colours in through these lily pads waters areas. So adding the blues definitely helped those greens to be nice subdued. I have this one lily pad held up here and an indication of another. So what I'd like to do is just to outline a little bit more, just so that once again these spaces are held. I'm going to pretend there's a lily pad sort of coming out here somewhere, and I might pretend that there's another lily pad in here. Yeah, putting a dot. Lily pads have those lines coming out from the center. This one might have some lines coming out from the center. So I'm not being too perfectionist, just wanting to get some details. And the last thing I'm going to do is, because this is quite subdued compared to that bright background, is I'm just going to come in. This is a red texture, and I'm just going to add where the tops of those petals were to be really bright pink. They've become a little bit lost, so I'm just going to add some red, and I might just give them a little dab of water so that we get that beautiful, nice, bright. So I've got enough pink down there. I just want a colour that's again contrasting in here. Some dark areas in and around here. And this is going to be my last thing that I do, my last application of water just on that red. I'm just going to dab it so that it leaches. Not wanting to pull it around too much. Just let that red leach. There we go. Water lily's finished. I'll put up a little bit of a display, just a few short stills so you can see the finished works. I might just lighten some of these lines just so they're not so blatantly obvious. There we go. See what happens doing that. Just lightening it off just a little bit. There we go. Alright, that's the end of the workshop. I really hope that you have some fun with these processes. There's just, sky's the limit. There's so many different things that you can do and try. It's all about playing and just giving yourself the freedom to use textures in a way that you've probably never thought of before or considered possible, that you always thought that a wet texture mark was always an error, but look at what you can get. So I'll show you the finished images, and that's it. Thank you. So I hope you just had a whole lot of fun with Textas. You can find more information and workshops at my website, artfolk.com.au. I'm also on social media at Facebook and Instagram at artfolk.creative. Please go ahead, play with Textas, tag me, let me see what you've been making. Have lots of fun and have a great day. Thanks.